Hey out there, this is Friday, August 10th, 2018, and it's just about 8 or 9:19 in the morning here in Northern California. And as usual, I'll talk about a lot of stuff. You could probably notice I'm using a different format. I'm using what Sony calls the old movie format. Thought I'd change it up. It came to mind this morning, the mood that I'm in, about circumstances that have unfolded this past week. In particular, InfoWars and Alex Jones being censored, banned, whatever you want to call it, disallowed on a whole bunch of very popular social media sites. And in particular, the one that disturbs me the most personally is YouTube because it is so user friendly, and I typically like to watch portions of the Alex Jones show on YouTube. I used to, and Monday morning when I was watching, they shut down the channel this past Monday, and I am really bugged about it because it was interactive. It was an opportunity to comment and to disagree, and not just myself but other people. And it was very easy to do so. And it's not so easy using Twitter. It's none of the other social media that I know of are nearly as user friendly. Uh, Not even Facebook. None of the ones that the big name alphabet companies out there, social media companies. But I really like YouTube, and so I'm feeling kind of grief struck. I guess you could say kind of sad, maybe even a little depressed. I apologize for that. Um, but it's genuine, and I'm watching some of the show now on Infowars.com, and of course, Alex can't afford the bandwidth and all the other factors that go into putting on a putting on a show like YouTube. That's a big deal to host the billions probably of videos that YouTube hosts. So um, I'm a little upset. I'm angry too. I'm angry at both sides of this thing. I'm angry at those that have instigated, manufactured the division in America. This whole Democrat Republican thing has got to go. The whole conservative liberal thing's got to go. The whole socialist capitalist thing, it's got to go. Okay. Think back to the bailout of '08. Okay. This is my supplication, okay, to humanity, that we all start getting it and become empowered and put our big boy and girl pants on and carry our fair share weight of the cross and stop prescribing to an ignorance is bliss philosophy and go out there and say, look, the American people at large were dealt a huge injustice. Okay, whatever you want to call that bailout, it was theft. Okay, that's what it was. It was coin clipping writ large, currency debasement, one and the same, two peas in the pod, same difference. Okay, because it's just like a scale. Okay, one goes down in worth because the other one went up in cost. Okay, it's cost of living tax. Okay, that's what it was. It was bailing out the people that had lent recklessly into the real estate industry. Okay, and these are special interest groups that collude. It's not a spoken thing. It's not like they all meet. Well, I mean, they often do. You real estate agents and lenders going out to dinner. That wouldn't be unusual, but it would be a conflict of interest, you could see, but not really. They're doing business. It's business dealings, right? So we're making friends and scratching each other's back, and we're teaming up, and we're all going to get ahead here. Yeah, I mean, I just never delved into. I have my California real estate license, the 4-year license. You got to take more classes for the 4-year than the 2-year. very annoying classes like real estate economics. I knew because I already knew so much intuitively, so much instinctively, so much from empirical evidence and observation over the years since the assassination of JFK. My dad was very awake in that regard. He knew what was going on. He wrote a book back in the 60s, Apple Pie. It was a satire on the United States government, but he went too far apparently, and the book was censored after selling, apparently, according to him, millions of copies. But, there is conspiracies. I mean, there's nothing wrong with admitting that there's conspiracies. There's black hats and white hats, spy versus spy in the government. Not every person working in government is pure as a driven snow. Okay. I know I digress here. Okay. The point about the bailout of '08. Okay. They did this on purpose. They recklessly lent. They were promised by their masters, all these reckless lenders, that they'd be made whole, that they weren't going to take a haircut. And if they did, it was going to be minor. Nothing to worry about because you're going to profit a lot more than you're going to lose. The loss came on the general public. Remember all the string of foreclosures that's probably going on to this day? Okay, people just struggling to hang on to their houses. I mean, there needed to be a reset. There needed to be a market correction. Okay, that would have been capitalism. What we had was not capitalism. It was in no way free market. It was antithetical, opposite of free market capitalism. For these high-ranking politicians, Congress, Senate, right, all those clowns that put their stamp of approval on that thing, legitimized this illegitimate BS that 90% of the American people were against. 90%. Listen, that's one hell of a lot of conservatives that were against that. That's one hell of a lot of liberals that were against that. That's one hell of a lot of Democrats that were against that. That's one hell of a lot of Republicans that were against that. That was one hell of a lot of capitalists that were against that. True capitalists. And that was one hell of a lot of good socialists. Okay, people that really at least believe. Okay, because there's a lot of people involved in all that communism and that philosophy of socialism that are liars, okay, because they're not telling you one very pertinent fact. It never worked in history, okay? It just doesn't work, okay? The rich are not going to pay the bills. Don't you understand? They're not. As nice as it might sound in a fairy tale like Robin Hood, okay, it's still theft. And it creates animosity. The rich get attorneys, okay, and the attorneys find them loopholes. So the people that can afford to pay the bills aren't paying them in socialism. It doesn't work. So why would you prescribe to it? Okay, I don't get. You understand? It's just illogical, and it's maddening to me. And I hate to say it's intellectually dishonest, but at some point, you've got to say, well, come on, man. Let's just admit what we've had is not true capitalism in any form. In any measure, any metric, okay, it hasn't been true capitalism. There's no supply and demand in there, okay? There's supposed to be progress relative to true capitalism. Okay, it creates a rising tide of prosperity across the board. And the reason is very clear and simple. It's because we, as a civilized society, find easier and easier methods to produce not only the things we absolutely need, which are few: food, housing, energy needs, and clean, potable water, okay? And the other stuff that we want. So we find easier and easier means to make these things. So when we start the game and, it's decided by whoever decides these things, the rules of the game, what is the minimum wage so that you're not, enslaving people, right? So we want a virtuous and ethical minimum wage, right, to start the game. So from that point, from using that as a benchmark in time, then you're supposed to see the worth of the currency increase naturally, organically, automatically. Okay, that's what would happen under true capitalism. And that's what these money masters of misery, the people are in charge of the world economic system, and that means they're in charge of the world political system. That means they're in charge of the world social system. So all the adhesion of these entities, I mean, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. So if we're getting raped and robbed, okay, people are going to be disquieted. They're going to be discontent. They're going to be angry and frustrated and anxious and pissed off. I mean, it's just, and rightfully so, righteous indignation about getting thieved. I mean, that's 90% of the American people that understand what's going on here. It's not hard. A child could really understand this stuff. Okay, if you want to see, well, you don't understand any of the terms that I'm saying here, look them up. But they're doing this to 90% of the American people. They've convinced people using the mainstream media. We know that Bilderberger Group is the grand puppeteers behind these people pulling the strings, telling everybody, yeah, just push this idea that high housing costs are a good thing. And of course, it's equity in your house, homeowners. So why wouldn't you want the worth? They'll tell you it's the worth of your house to increase, the value of your house. You know, avoiding terms like the burden, the cost, and the price to the person, that next guy in line here. Okay, so future generations, whatever. I mean, it's not hard to understand the stuff I talk about. It's not. And anybody that says it is being intellectually dishonest. It's a sophisticated way of being a liar. And it's going to get you to the same place. I mean, look, you got to be ready for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You got to be ready that the captives be set free. This is what the Bible, the whole thing is all about. This is the inevitable eventuality that God is going to impose. Yes, he's going to impose his will on the earth. Okay, so I am very much an optimist. I just know that I thank God every day I'm alive. I mean, you know, I know people don't like me. I mean, the Federal Reserve, all the mean things I've said about the Federal Reserve, certainly they've got henchmen that, you know, say, hey, you give me the word, I'll go get that guy. He's saying mean things about the Federal Reserve. Hey, listen, man, I'm thank God I exist and I'm alive. I mean, we've all just got to really chill a little bit here and let go and let God at some point. It's got to be the right time in history for big changes to take place. And God, Father, knows best. In the meantime, we've got to fill our hearts with so much love, there's no room for the other crap in there. And we've just got to back off this idea that we need to be divided, that we need to buy the lie. We don't need to buy the lie. We can be empowered with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And just say, hey, you know what? We're going to demand some changes here. We're going to demand to stop getting ripped off. What is this national debt? What do we talk? How are we going to pay this thing off? When is that? What's the plan here? What's going on here? And who's in the meantime paying it off? Well, all this other huge swath of the population, their numbers keep going up. And you think that we can be happy as a people under this paradigm of ever increasing wealth imbalance? And you wonder and you scratch your head, you say, about where all this socialist sympathy comes from? I mean, that to me is intellectually dishonest, because there's no way you don't understand where it's coming from. So, I mean, look, I know I digressed 6 ways to Sunday, okay? But listen, this Alex Jones thing has got me really perturbed. And I'm angry at a lot of people here. And I'm angry at myself too, okay, that I'm not more powerful, because I'm just as human as they get, weak and pitiable, pathetic. And God lets us be that way. He lets us be that because it says in Scripture that in our weakness His strength is perfected. So somehow we just got to have that little mustard seed of faith Jesus talked about and believe in Him and trust that He knows us and loves us and understands us like nobody else can, okay, including ourselves. And He's the only one that can save our lives. We can't save each other's lives. How important can any of us be to each other? How important can Alex Jones be to me? He can't save my life. And I'm angry about the stuff they've been putting on the show. I think that they've been sympathetic with violent people on the conservative side of this thing, the Trump support side. They kept showing this one guy. I forget, he's got a nickname, but he punched somebody. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that YouTube saw, that they said, you know what, the moderator said, we can't have this. He's look. You can say what you want. Antifa, we know, is way more violent. We know that there's some these people are paid. A lot of these people are paid provocateurs. There's money in these industries. It's an industry of being a professional protester. Okay, it's a sad state of affairs in America. We're at a very low point in our history, okay, in terms of being divided. And we've got to get the fact that this has been done on purpose. We've got to start speaking out and telling people, you're right. I get why you sympathize with with socialism, because all we've had is crony capitalism since JFK was murdered. Okay, he was abolishing the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve shouldn't have existed since 1963 if we were going to pay an iota of tribute to JFK and what he tried, the gifts he tried to give the American people. Okay, and his life was snuffed out. And that's the course America's been on this whole time. We had a huge giant coup. Nobody gets it. The money printing class took over America. You don't get that. And then you get the bailout of '08 when it wasn't working good enough, when organic, natural, or automatic market forces started working. Okay, and they're going to call it stagflation, and we got to pump up the economy and all this and dump a bunch of money on it. And Bill Slick Willie Clinton got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act, which kept the banksters on a leash at least a little bit. Okay, and now, I mean, we're screwed. Here we are.